my wife was like, you have to do this. And time, like this could be the turning point. And I was like, all right. So I did it, and I get up there and I just let it all out, and I started talking about it. And my presentation was super bold and visual, like lots of colors. Something different that you haven't really seen from a stage presentation before. It wasn't like a PowerPoint. It was like, here's neon color face tattoos and stuff like that. And I could just see people's faces in the crowd, and it was just like, as I'm going through it, I could also see that none of them had ever looked at this before. They were just like, they maybe heard about it. They hadn't really seen it. And I'm presenting it as if, as if you guys should be using this in the business, how it's already been structured, how we put it in there, how we've utilized it. I got swarmed after I got off the stage. People were like, what the hell was that? And they were like, you already have this in the business. You're using this like every day. I'm like, yeah, for a lot of clients. They're like, Jesus. They're like, how? It just exploded from there. That's when I knew that I was like, we're pretty far ahead.
Before we dive into today's episode, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us grow and inspire more people on their journeys. Thank you.
Hello, Rory. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on. Excited to chat a little bit of this stuff, and hopefully we can get into some cool stuff.
Some juicy stuff.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know you, Rory, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Rory Flynn. I am the founder of Systematiq.ai. We are essentially what I like to call an operational AI company, meaning that we look into people's businesses, we find holes, and then we plug those holes with conventional tools. So, really do a lot of things within the, really corporate training space. I create a lot of content in regards to how, marketing teams, specifically creative teams, can utilize AI tools and inject this stuff into their workflow. A lot of it is for internal processes, moving things along, expanding communication, rather than replacing people with just AI tools. It's how do we enhance our workforce to just make things easier, a little bit better. So that's kind of where, I sit. We also do some done for you creative, depending on what medium that's for, but overall didn't expect to be here. This is just kind of where things landed at the current moment. But yeah, man, that's kind of the deal on that.
So just as you said that you weren't expecting it, what is it actually that you are doing before diving into the world of AI?
Yeah, so I'd say my career, man, it's pretty non-linear. I think that's the best way to put it.
It makes it more
everywhere
exciting,
from,
doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been sort of like a mercenary sort of cavalier in terms of what I've been doing. It started off in product intellectual property licensing, which I don't think many people do that, but funny that I somehow ended up in AI. What more so on the marketing side of things, digital marketing, e-commerce, things of that nature. Really have a heavy background in email marketing, paid media, up until this point. But that's kind of where it all started, was trying to find solutions for that. It's a heavy volume business, and we needed to create a lot of assets. We needed to create a lot of different copy, different images, just overall just a massive creative need, and AI kind of came along at the right time and just felt like it was the perfect fit for what we were looking for. So luckily jumped in it, but like I said, that sort of evolved into its own beast where we're at now.
And no doubt there is a big future ahead, right?
100%. Yeah, I think it's going to be, it evolves every day. I've never seen tech sort of, on this level of development scale where it feels like every 2 weeks there's something new, and every tool pops up, seemingly every new tool pops up every week, and there's a new feature and there's some new crazy functionality, and then it's like, all right, I don't even know how to keep up with it half the time. So it's a lot, but I think it's just going to continuously improve at a scale that we probably are not used to. So definitely trying to keep track of it myself.
Yeah, that was one of my questions for later. How do you manage to keep on track of everything? Because I'm someone who kind of does just the basics with AI. I feel like that I can see like on LinkedIn or in the news constantly something, and I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting this. So how do you keep up to date with everything?
Simple answer, I don't, to be quite candid. I think it's really hard now. Like when I was starting, right? If we go back a little bit, like 2 years, I think it was actually about 2 years ago this time when ChatGPT sort of like came into the marketplace.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think that was recently birthday of 2 years, just as you said.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, so it was, I remember it being around Thanksgiving time in the US here, the holiday season. So it was like, okay, started using that. I was like, this is cool. And then it was, essentially easier, I think, to stay on top of it at that point, because there wasn't this breadth of tools where it was, okay, we can do copy creation. Great.
Hmm.
We could also do some strategy and analyze some numbers and things like that. Then it was, all right, let's use this, image generator called Midjourney. Cool. And then, really kind of a couple months after that, it was runway with video. So to me, it was like these three, in my space, in the creative space, it was like, okay, we have text, we have images, we have video. Awesome. Like that's where we can focus. Now it's seemingly injected into everything. So, the benefit of being in the creative space was I was in a lot of these more complex tools early. Now, the downfall of that is that, creating content and working specifically on these tools is there's this breadth of other tools that I don't necessarily get to focus on. So, by narrowing the focus to build a business, kind of keeps me in that lane, while the other stuff, to be quite candid, I don't have as much insight into as I would like to, because it's just there's not enough time to learn it. So
I think it's just impossible.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think, it's everyone's zone of genius, right? Like if you're going to use it for, in your business, if you're going to use it for, starting a business, anything like that, it's you kind of got to pick your tools and pick your lane and sort of get good with them before you start to expand. Because I think it's impossible to learn all of them at once. You need to sort of to me, build a skill set, learn one, get really good with it, stack another one, stack another one, stack another one. It's easier to compartmentalize the learning that way than to try to I'm going to build my whole business with AI, but I know nothing about, any of these tools. So it's daunting. I think it was easier to get, I say this to everyone, I think it was easier to get in on it. Not like you still can't, but I think it was easier to get in on it when it was bad. I say this to everyone, when the tools were crappy, it was I go back to Midjourney, version 3. You could just write text and push enter and it would generate an image, and it wasn't that great, right? But it was easy then. Now there's 700 different functionalities, 15 parameters, all these different things you can do. It's like the difference between having, us growing up with iPhones, right? iPhone 1, super easy to use because it wasn't
compared to the recent one.
Now, it's like giving your grandparents an iPhone and saying figure it out, and they're
and then we'll see, in the next 10 years, we will be thinking that what we've got now is a basic, and what we get in 10 years, it will be advanced or future.
Crazy. Even you look back a year, it's oh my God, this has come so far. 6 months, 3 months, it's just that's what I'm saying. The pace of development is so insane in comparison to where it used to be. Apple, you'd get an iOS update and it was different color emojis this time, nothing radically different. Now it's every 2 weeks you have something on a monumental scale. So it's crazy.
And I think especially with AI, because no one wants to stay behind, everyone wants to keep on top. So the competition is excited, because for us as customers or users, we benefit from it, right? So it's really interesting.
100%. Yeah, it's like I said, I think it's really understanding, which I think probably is a good conversation, at some point, is problem identification, right? I think a lot of people are looking for, because there's so many tools, they just want to jump on the popular ones, which is not a bad idea, but really the thought process for me has always been where are my problems? What do I hate doing? Where is my team really falling behind? Where are the friction points? Then how do we find tools that sort of fit that problem, and how do we use them for that problem? Because identifying the problems and getting creative with the uses of the tools can be really helpful. I just don't think people are. I think people are just rushing to keep up and not necessarily consciously thinking about really ways to solve problems with the tools, because that's what they are to me. Is just another accelerated form of problem solving.
And I think people also often forget that it's a tool. It's not a full replacement. Obviously, cannot forget or cannot miss discussing this, that it's just a tool and you should keep some human touch. Because, for example, whenever you post, I don't know, or LinkedIn or somewhere, everyone, mentions there still should be some human touch. It's not just a full replacement. So that is also something that should be mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's, I think creative people will be creative with it. I think if you're naturally curious, you can have a wonderful AI experience, because when you start to, I think that's why, especially from a content standpoint, what shaped a lot of my content early on was, here's 500 prompts for ChatGPT for marketing. And I'm like, okay, but like then everyone, you're not thinking about how to solve the problem. You're just taking a copy paste solution. So
Yeah.
you're not thinking, you're just like, oh, this is how I generate a, social media content calendar with ChatGPT by using this standard prompt, not like figuring out what would be the best way to get, the best answer from
Hmm.
this tool, meaning like, what kind of data would it need? What would be some examples that it would like to see to repurpose? Like, what are some things that you're trying to achieve from like a goal standpoint? Instead of just using these like long prompts that you don't think through, you like actually learn how to talk to the tool and
Yeah.
like how to understand how it's going to like output for you. That to me was sort of monumental in utilizing this stuff, was just getting creative. Like, where can I push this thing? How, and just like that. Yeah, I think I think creative people will be creative with it. I think if you're naturally curious, you can have a wonderful AI experience, because when you start to, I think that's why, especially from a content standpoint, what shaped a lot of my content early on was, here's like 500 prompts for ChatGPT for marketing. And I'm like, okay, but like then everyone, you're not thinking about how to solve the problem. You're just taking a copy paste solution. So
Yeah.
you're not thinking, you're just like, oh, this is how I generate a, social media content calendar with ChatGPT by using this standard prompt, not like figuring out what would be the best way to get, the best answer from
Hmm.
this tool, meaning like, what kind of data would it need? What would be some examples that it would like to see to repurpose? Like, what are some things that you're trying to achieve from like a goal standpoint? Instead of just using these like long prompts that you don't think through, you like actually learn how to talk to the tool and
Yeah.
like how to understand how it's going to like output for you. That to me was sort of monumental in utilizing this stuff, was just getting creative. Like, where can I push this thing? How, and just like that.
And I think it's a great point that you mentioned, because, for example, I can see quite often also like a post on LinkedIn or somewhere, top 100 prompts or something that you, I don't know, need to use that you will benefit from, blah, blah, and this and this. And sometimes I've also got like a, FOMO or tendency. Oh,
Yeah.
I need to check it. It's going to be game changer or something. But then it comes to the point that you just mentioned. Is it actually helpful to you? Do you actually need it? And it's not just copy and paste. You should be thinking about it at least a bit, or use what you need actually.
That's the old adage to me of, teaching someone how to fish versus giving them the fish. Like if you learn sort of how the tools function at a baseline level, how they think, how they output, then you can sort of take your own direction with it, because it's not, these sort of formulated responses and prompts, they tend to be very generic, and you get generic answers. And then that also turns people off to the tools, because they're like, well, that didn't give me anything good. It's like, well, you also didn't try, so it's it does take some effort. It does take effort.
That's more harm than good, because then you see like a post which are super obviously AI generated, but
emojis, the same words. Yeah. It's the same thing as this is a game changer, supercharge your marketing. It's like, I get it. People are just getting on here, just getting started. I don't want to knock anyone for that. It's just, we're so insulated in our little AI bubble because we're in it every day. And like, I can look at text and be like, that's ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
I hear it on the radio commercials now every once in a while. Yes, I still listen to the radio.
I haven't noticed on radio that they do it as well.
Like lawyers and stuff, like they'll do like a commercial where I can just hear that the script is 100% written by ChatGPT. It's so obvious, but
yeah,
I think that's died a little bit from about like 6 months ago, where it was so obvious. It just feels a little bit robotic. Feels a little bit, I hate to say lifeless. It does. I think the copy to me comes out way more lifeless than some of the images in the videos, but that's my own personal take. Because I think everyone writes different.
I have to agree with you. Sometimes when I see that, I'm like, come on, you could have put a bit more effort into it. At least try to personalize it or something.
Or take the answer and say, like, do this in a different way. Like, it's just that it's going one step further, I think, is where most people get hung up. They get their output and they're like, oh, that wasn't good. I'm going to either quit and like, just take it and write it myself, or I'm just going to, post as is. If you take it that one step further, where you go a little bit, oh, can we make this? Can we change the tone up? Can we, shorten the sentences? Can we cut the fluff words? Can we use more visceral language? Like, it's an editing tool too. You can take it and just go in there and sort of like play around with it, get different variations. So
Yeah.
like people like curiosity, right? I keep saying that about all the tools. Like, what can I actually get out of it? Because you can most of the time what you want if you just keep going. So
and just as we are discussing this, do you remember from your own experience, like back in the day, maybe when you were starting, some, let's say, cringy moments or something that you wish you haven't done the way that you did, such as copy and paste or something like that when using AI?
Something I wish I hadn't done.
Yeah, that now makes you think like, oh my God, why did I do it this way?
I don't know. I think it was all I kind of have I'm a very like optimistic mindset person where I feel like all the failures were like building up to something else. So, I never downloaded those prompt guides, prompt templates, things like that. Would I look at them and like see like some interesting thought processes? Yes, and like adapt it to myself. Maybe I would have back then, taken those a little bit more seriously and try to figure out like really hardcore, like how to get the most, like really focusing in on tonality. I think early on, probably if I was going to say anything, was like, how do I get this tool to speak exactly like me? That would be, found that very hard early on. Figured it out, basically from a trial and error standpoint for over a couple months of, it really needed a lot of raw data. Like I needed to break my own stuff down into raw data. Like, what type of words do I use the most? How long are my sentences typically? What type of, sort of flow do I have, format, structure? So that it became like a formula to then input back into the system. So I wish I had thought about it that way, really breaking everything down. I think about it like, it's like ingredients, right? Like I think this is a very simple process for, thinking about anything with AI, like, pizza. Right? Like you have, your dough, you have tomato sauce, you have mozzarella, maybe some toppings. Like if you put all those together, you get a pizza. But also if you break it back apart, that can be also a calzone or something else, right? So, but it's getting it into that ingredient format so that it can be rebuilt. But I think that works the same way with images and videos. How do I take an image, break it down into its requisite ingredients, and then control all those little ingredients and build it back out? So like that thought process, if I had found that out 2 years ago versus about, 16 months ago, would have been monumental. But it took me, a while to get there.
Yeah,
but that's definitely one thing.
It's a great point, and I can only relate to it. And as we are discussing AI, actually, were you always like a curious person who was trying new things, new tech and stuff? Or how did you actually, when you heard about it, what made you to try or to explore it?
I saw some things on Twitter. So it was like a late night doom scroll kind of thing where I was just, trying to wind down from my day. And I saw these crazy pictures. I think it was like, either Peter Griffin from Family Guy in like a 1980s sitcom or something like that, or the Pope in a Balenciaga jacket. I'm like, who's making this stuff? And then I went and I saw that the tool was Midjourney, and I was like, okay, what the hell is this? I went, figured out how to get it downloaded and up, in the Discord. I'd never used Discord before. Went on there. So I made like my first prompt, and it was something, something crazy, and it came out, and I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. And then before I know it, I tried like a few other things, and then I spent 8 straight hours on it. And I was like, this is insane. I was up until like 3 a.m. I paid for the highest plan subscription immediately. And I was like, that's it, I'm in. And
it was the start of a new chapter in life.
Yeah. And then it took a couple days for me to be like, can I do this for work? Like how can I use this somehow? Because, candidly, it came at a time where, we were at Black Friday, right? Like we just passed Black Friday. And in the email and paid media world, it's craziness during this time. Like this is the Super Bowl. And you need to send at more volume than you're doing most of the time. You're just, it's deals, it's the holidays. You're trying to make, Q4 crazy because Q1 typically is way slower. So, we in the agency world, we had about 90 clients at the time. We were very behind in terms of getting things updated, especially for our clients, right? Like talking about specific problems. Typically when you're running something like email marketing, right? Like we'd have a new client comes on, we're building probably about anywhere between 20 to 25 automation emails. So those are your standard welcome series, abandoned cart, browse abandoned, post purchase, 4 to 5 emails per sequence there. And then you're doing during this time anywhere from like 10 to 20 campaigns a month. So if you can imagine like the amount of asset load that has to go into that, images, like different stylizations, graphics, infographics, things like that. It's a lot. And a lot of the clients oftentimes they just don't have the asset volume to keep up with that. So you have to reuse stuff over and over and over again, and it becomes stale. So that was kind of like our way of how can we use this for like better storytelling? So like, for example, if we had a salad dressing company, right? Maybe they only had an asset base of 100 images. We could run through that in 2 months, 3 months, right? It's done. Now we either we didn't have in-house production. So it'd be like, oh, you guys need more assets. And they'd be like, we're not going to do that in this quarter because it's too expensive and it's not in our budget. Great. Like now we just have to use the same images over and over again. So if we were talking about something like I use this example all the time. If we were talking about like active ingredient within the salad dressing company. So maybe we're talking about avocado oil, right? Maybe they don't have any images of like an avocado and some, next to like a bottle or something like that. We're talking about the benefits of avocado oil, like all the good, health benefits, whatever. Instead of just slapping a product shot into the email where it was just like, here's the salad dressing bottle, buy our stuff, while talking about avocado oil, it's like, can we create an image in the brand style that's maybe a picture of oil and an avocado, so it flows better with the storytelling and like the visual sort of aesthetics of the entire email. The marketing message just connects better. And that was kind of where we started to see traction because the click-through rate started to improve. We started to notice a lot more positive feedback from just the metrics that we had. So I was like, okay, we're telling better stories now with these images because we don't have to force feed people product shots, which is basically just, from a marketing standpoint, just please buy my stuff. Like that's all it says. So yeah, that was kind of like the inflection point for us when that stuff started to hit. And then I was like, okay, we can do this for one client. Can we do this for others? And then that sort of opened up Pandora's box into not just we're doing this in email marketing for, external facing things. It's what can we do internally with this? What other problems can we solve? Like then if you have someone that's curious, like I'm talking about, you start to see like the matrix, right?
It's like
you start to see
a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, wait, can this be in the sales process? Can this be in onboarding? Can this be in, client concepting? And you start to be like, it can. How do we fit it in? Then that's developing the processes, the systems, talking to clients, getting feedback, things like that. So really long answer, but that's sort of like the progression of how it all came to be.
No, it makes complete sense. And if I was in such a position, I would go down the rabbit hole as well, because it was even back then. I think back then I didn't even know what was it. So I was actually about to ask you, you probably kind of answered it, but what was the reception or the feedback, for example, of the clients? Because suddenly they didn't have to take the pictures, they didn't have to deal with it. I guess that the pictures looked cool at the same time, so it must have been like a game changer. Don't want to use that word, game changer, because we just discussed it.
It was. I mean, it was, though, because initially, early on, being totally candid, 2 years ago, no one was worried about like infringement, or there wasn't like a lot of legal talk, which there is now, which we're way more careful about than we were back then, candidly, because, honestly, it was like the stars aligned. There couldn't have been a better format for it than email, because email, number one, typically has a very short shelf life. Like a promotional email, I tell everyone, I don't know anyone who goes back into their promotional inbox. Like, do you ever go back and look at an email from a week ago in there? Or do you just like hit mark all as read? Most of the time, that's what you're doing if you don't actually open the email. Yeah. So it has a very short shelf life, typically between like 6 to 12 hours-ish, that it's going to live. After that, it's buried in the annals of history. And it's a very small format. So typically you have about like 75%-ish most of the time are opening on mobile. So it's a very small format. And back then, we didn't have the upscalers that we do now. So, resolution and pixel clarity was a thing. So in a small format, in a short shelf life, for something that's built for the medium itself, email is not, you don't sell on email marketing. You move people from your email to your website.
Yep.
So the goal is just to attract visual firepower, get someone interested, move them to the website so that they go buy, right? Now, that's where, we started to get traction with our clients, because it's like we can be a little bit bolder, we can be a little bit more exciting in email, because, I don't think anyone really looks at email as being like, this is sexy, but email sells, right? So that was... And when they were like, "Oh, you guys can just produce these assets, and we don't have," and I'm like, "Yeah, it takes 5 minutes to do this," and they're like, "This is great." And there were a lot of early adapters were on board, and a lot of them didn't even, we would show them 2 pictures and they'd be like, "Which one's AI?" And I'd be like, "This one." They'd be like, "Wow, okay." So that was because we were doing it for external facing first, which I think a lot of people didn't do. They're coming into the game new now. I think people are not putting things out externally before they really know the tools.
Yep.
But our whole goal was, how do we match brand style? How do we make things look real, so where you can't distinguish it? So those 2 problems in themselves kind of opened up the entirety of it for us, because that was something that was a big pain point for people early on with the tools, is how do you make things look real, and how do you get things consistent? So that set us up to operationalize this stuff. How do we figure out prompting at scale so that not I can just do it, that my whole team can do it? And I think the other thing that doesn't get talked about too, not to go too long on this, is the internal buy-in. Like, you need to have people that are just like, okay, I'll do this, because I wasn't producing and designing at the time. I was in sales and business development, and I was trying to grow our client base. But I always know our designer. I'm a former designer, freelancing for a while, so I just know that process is really tough, because you're just producing so much, like, assets at scale and different creative at scale, but you're also dealing with client revisions. Can you change the text here? Can you change the colors here? You get buried in it. So I know they were always overworked, and it was like, how can I help them? Can I help them? Can this get them done 10% quicker with what they're trying to do? Because that would be, at scale across 90 clients, 10% savings, on time. It's a lot over the course of a year. So that was kind of like, all right, now we can start to, once we started to get, you needed one person. I got one person into it. He saw the light, and then he just sort of ran with it from there. And then that was sort of like I don't want to say the viral moment, but it's like, that's how it started to spread from person to person. Because if it was just me preaching it, to an employee, here, go learn this tool, do more work so that you can do your work. Like, that doesn't sound as good or as feasible as, let's get excited about this tool, let's work on it in a fun way, and then we'll apply it. Because then, you have that sort of self-led, self-taught environment. But it was...
It just, as you were explaining it, I was trying to put myself into the shoes of someone those 2 years ago. Because I don't know, I wouldn't believe, because literally it would change the game and be super cool. And I can imagine you as the person who's doing kind of everything. You must have been super excited also to be the one who's diving into this tool and, exploring and learning and doing all the stuff. So it must have been just super cool time back then.
Yeah, man, it was passion. It was like passion, curiosity, and necessity all at the same time. So, like, I was so into it for myself. I felt like it was my creative outlet back then. Like, when I got out of design, I felt like I lost a lot of it, so then I had a place to go do it, not just for business, but for fun. And then, there was the necessity part of it, where we needed it. So it was getting people to do it. I think that was the hardest part. It was really like, okay, it's this crazy time of year, and there's, so much work to be done. How do I get people to be like, you need to learn this tool, which is basically like, here's more work on top of your work. Which so we had to do it in a fun way, which also made it better. Because that was like getting people into it is definitely something that doesn't get talked about. Is like, you have to, people think that it's going to replace them. They have a lot of reservation about it. They don't think it's good. There's a lot of different like hurdles to get over, because you'll have like those 15%, 20% early adopters who just say, yes, I do it. the 60% that like waits, and the 20% that just like, I'm never going to do this. So, you have to figure out how to attack all those segments.
Are you looking to elevate your online presence? Check out Trailblazer, our digital marketing agency. Whether it's standing out on social media, crafting a stunning new website, or developing impactful visuals, Trailblazer has got your back. Visit trailblazer.digital and reach your online potential today.
And would you be able to compare back then to now? What is like people's reception or opinion on it? If they are more open or welcoming to try it, or if it's still similar?
You have to find the in, right? Like I always talk about this. It's like sales, right? Like when I'm doing sales, I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm trying to find the pain point as to like where the real frustration is, so that I can hit on that, and then like keep finding, like the little pieces that I'm like, oh, okay, that's really bothering them. Let me ask more about that, because that opens up the problem, right? Then once you see the problem, then you can apply the solution. Now, like the feeling back then was that, oh, it can't do like a Photoshop style design. I'm like, it can't do text. It can't do this. I'm like, yeah, you guys are still designers. Like you can still do that. You just need a base image. Like the thing that really like took it off, because initially when I was posting this stuff content wise too, like graphic designers were like ready to kill me. And I'm like, I don't think you guys understand. I was like, I don't think you guys understand. This is like the best thing that's ever happened to us as graphic designers, because we don't have to go through stock sites anymore for certain things. They're like, you can't do anything that we can do. It's gonna like blah, blah. I'm like, no, you're not looking at it the right way. Like we build everything in layers, right? Like we build images in layers. You have an image. Sometimes you're adding a gradient. Sometimes you're adding different textures. You're adding text on top. You're different icons and holding and framing elements, things like that. Like you can generate those all separately and then do your job and put them together. So instead of, like I remember we did this example for a basketball. It was like a social media post, but like for basketball themed, right? And it was like, all right, we can generate a background of the court. We can get a basketball texture. We can get like a grid pattern where they typically take the scores, and we can all layer that and, put it together. So instead of, going and generating this whole composition in one shot, it's like, let's generate each individual piece, like the ingredients. Yeah. So, like instead of just being the chef, now we're also the farmer. Like we're growing our own ingredients, and then we're putting everything together and cooking the meal. And that's when like that flipped on a dime. That's when everyone started to get it. I was like, I don't have to go through stock image sites to find a basketball texture. I don't have to go through these free, sort of icon sites to find something that I want. We can go generate them on here. That was when it was like that was like the light moment, the epiphany for everyone, because they got it then.
And do you remember back then, what was the competition like? If you are like one of the, let's say, trailblazers who discovered this, or was there like a competition that were already using it or catching up as well, or what was the situation like?
I don't think there was many people. I mean, I remember I did it was June of last year, and I had been using the tools, I think at that point was it June of last year? Yeah, it was June of last year. I had been using the tools for, at that point, where are we at now? 8 months, maybe? And I got asked to go do a presentation in Barcelona in front of like 4,000 people. And I was like, guys, I don't even, like, you want me on a stage in front of 4,000 people talking about this stuff? Like, I've only been doing this for a couple months. Like, they were like, no, this is highly interesting. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, but you're sure? Like, this is like, your audience wants this. It was performance marketing. I mean, they were, media buyers and, things like that. And I got on stage, and I'm like, bugging. I'd never been on stage before, super, super nervous. Like, biggest fear was public speaking. Failed that course in college. Never done it before. And I buried myself for about 2 weeks to get this thing done. They gave me very short notice too. It was only like 2 weeks. And my wife was like, you have to do this. It's like, you have to go and do this. Like the one time, like this could be the turning point. And I was like, all right. So I did it, and I get up there and I just let it all out. And I started talking about it, and my presentation was super like bold and visual, like lots of colors. Something different that you haven't really seen from a stage presentation before. It wasn't like a PowerPoint. It was like
Not like
There's
those
neon
templates
colored, yeah,
that you
neon
see all
colored
the
face
time.
tattoos and stuff like that. And I could just see people's faces in the crowd, and it was just like, as I'm going through it, I could also see that none of them had ever looked at this before. They were just like, they maybe heard about it. They hadn't really seen it. And I'm presenting it as if, as if you guys should be using this in the business, how it's already been structured, how we put it in there, how we've utilized it. I got swarmed after I got off the stage.
Oh, yeah,
People
I
were
can
like,
imagine.
what the hell was that? And they were like, you already have this in the business. You're using this like every day. I'm like, yeah, for a lot of clients. They're like, Jesus. They're like, how?
Oh my
It
God.
just exploded from there. That's when I knew that I was like, we're pretty far ahead, even though I don't feel like we're far ahead. But, people were just getting started then. And that was
Must have
crazy.
been super cool experience, seeing those faces of people like, wow, what is this? What is this guy? Where did he come up with all of this?
It was surreal. I mean, for me to get on stage and actually like deliver something out of my mouth, which I was so nervous I was just going to either puke on stage or 4,000 people get out there. I'm like, I think that's a lot of people.
Yeah, very natural. I'm pretty sure that everyone would, or majority of people would be like that.
Oh my God. And then, as you see it, you're looking for like visual cues if people, number one, are interested, and number two, are like engaged. And I just started seeing every slide, hundreds of phones go up to take pictures of the slides. And I'm like, everyone's listening. This is weird. It's a very odd feeling to have like that sort of like, I don't want to say power, but it's like people are like hanging on your words and they're taking pictures. I'm like, this is nuts. And I saw one person. If I ever find this lady, I'm going to give her the biggest hug, because my voice was stuttering when I listened back to it. Everyone said I sounded decent. I was like, nah, I sounded like a nervous wreck. But there was one woman that just had like her hands over her head, like clapping at every big slide, and I just
that's nice.
looked at her, and I was like, "You're gonna get me through this, because I'm
biggest
about
fan.
to throw up." Yeah. She was great, but it was, like I said, man, that was, I had people coming up to me that were CEOs, founders, big business. Like, what is this? Tell me everything. Tell me right now. Like, I couldn't have 5 minutes to myself the rest of the conference, and it was
imagine.
Like nothing I'd ever experienced. It was nuts. Even the people on stage, people are like, we came back to watch your presentation because like we started hearing the buzz about it. People are like, this guy's doing some crazy stuff on stage right now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be modest about it, honestly. Like I still feel like my presentation was average, but like it's just because it was so new. It was new.
Yourself. Yeah.
I just think it was new and no one had seen it yet. That was really it was the novelty factor of it.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. If I was in the audience, I would be one of those people with open mouth and be like, what the hell is that? And it
was just new, and we had data. That was the other thing I think that was really important in all of this is, I don't think people track a lot of what they're doing with AI significantly, but we were very meticulous on that early on. Like, how do we track this to actually make sure it makes sense? Like, is it saving us time? Is it making us more productive? Is it improving like our, employees sort of like time allocation? And like, is it generating ROI? And we did that. And that was where I think a lot of people were super into it, because I was showing the breakdown of how that worked and like why it worked and like really meticulous numbers on it. So it was, I think that was
evidence behind it. So like,
instead of just selling the dream, right?
Yeah.
Instead of selling the dream, it was like, here's the tangible facts as to how it's worked. I think that's what really got people excited, because there wasn't a lot of that at the time, and it was good that we did that. That was the X factor.
And I wonder, because obviously back then, because you were new to this, you are kind of the one who is bringing this up to people who don't know. So did you feel like that you wanted to share it with people so that they can benefit from it, or did you also feel like that you want to keep it maybe for yourself because maybe you were afraid that they would catch up or there would be like a competition?
No, honestly, I felt like share everything. It's a weird feeling. I've learned this from a few other founders, CEOs I've talked to, that it just stuck with me. They're like, you can tell someone how to do 100% of the thing you do. 5% will go out and do it. The 95% will not. So
that's a good point.
Like, yeah, and I was, that stuck with me a lot, and especially creating content as well. I'll get into that in a second. But like, I was giving all this stuff away at the time because I also knew that these tools change so quickly that it doesn't matter. Like whatever I say today is going to be done in 2 months. And, really, I was just like, if anyone actually wants to go and do this, here's all the information. It was basically like, I don't want to say it was a glorified sales pitch. I wasn't selling anything at the time. I didn't have anything to offer. I was working at an agency, right? I wasn't like, please go buy my course. It was just like, here's everything I'm doing. If you want to try it out, go ahead. And yeah, because I think that whole sort of, everyone was cagey in the beginning, like, do we share prompts? How I got there? I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, who cares? Like, it's just you're showing your thought process too. Let someone build on it. Like, someone's gonna, everyone remembers their first, right? Like, if you teach someone how to do something, or you like seriously impact someone, or like change their thought process or whatever, like, you remember that person. And I was hoping that would be the case. That here I'm giving you everything I know. Hopefully, there's some sort of reciprocation on the back end. You send me a client, you hire me for a project, whatever. I'm like, the information is the commodity at this point. So that was how I thought about it. And then from a content standpoint, always like, here's the exact way I did this. Here's the prompt that I used. If you want to go try it out, see if it works for you. Like, I also felt like that was like a check and balance too, because you can see at that time, a lot of people were just like, here's what I created on, with Midjourney. Here's what I created with XYZ tool, but no back end to how you got there. No fails. Like, here's the roadblocks to watch out for. Really, when I was creating content, I was like, let me show you each step. This is what can happen. It could be bad this way. If it happens bad this way, this is how you adjust it. So it was like a way of navigating through a thought process, and not just use this prompt. It'll get good results every time. It's if this prompt doesn't work, or you don't like it, here's how to fix it. And also like what to really do with it. So yeah, that's a great question, man. Because I think that we learned that early on too. Like, going back to sales, when we were selling, we had really good conversion rates with our sales, because we were basically, when we do a phone call with a potential client, we'd break down the entire channel with them on the phone. We'd go like, all right, open up your Klaviyo account. Let's go through each little piece by piece. Look at everything. We'd say, all right, this is a problem area. Oh, this is good. This doesn't need to be changed. That, could be a potential area for growth. Then we give them an entire audit, basically, step by step, what exactly is wrong. This is the timelines it would take to fix it. This is kind of exactly what you need. This is what we build. This is how to do it. It's basically, if they wanted to go take it and run with it and do it internally, they had a whole consulting plan.
It's like the whole tutorial.
Yeah, and I mean, 95% of the time, like I said, they would just say, you guys go do this. And then the other 5%, people take it, run with it. They'd come back a year later or something and be like, I got great results from the changes you said to make. We didn't end up going with you, but thank you. I was like, good. If you guys ever have any clients that need it, or friends, whatever, send them our way. So
yeah, no, it's amazing, because I often see people posting something on LinkedIn, like what they created. I'm like, oh my God, how did they do it? I have no idea. So I always appreciate that they basically show step by step, and like a recipe, how they get it to the result. And now, as you said, if they mention roadblocks or something, it just makes it much easier, because for someone who doesn't know that or hasn't tried it, it's just much more beneficial. So just extra appreciation for this.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's certain things that, just too hard and too intangible to explain. But if you can sort of navigate, I like to call it like the decision tree, as to like, this isn't working. What can I try next? What can I try next? What can I try next? If you give people sort of that sort of framework, so much easier to get to the end result. And the good thing is with these tools, it's like using Photoshop now at this point. Not saying that there's a direct correlation, but Photoshop, they have so many features. If two of us got to the same end result, we probably could have used a 100% different process, right? Yeah. So it's kind of that same theory of just like, you can get to the end result, you can do it a million different ways. It's just kind of how you think about it and how you want to like sort of attack things. But it's really, I just kind of love where it is at the current moment, where it still feels a little raw, and it still feels a little unpolished, and it still feels like you have to think through things to get to a solution, because I think it makes you better at the tools themselves, is like problem solving. Like,
Mhm.
oh, this didn't, like I use this example all the time. A lot of people have trouble with getting cars to drive in AI video, right? Like they sometimes the cars look like they're sliding and not driving. And I'm like, well, because in the image that you're putting in to the video generator, the wheels are static; they're not moving, so it doesn't
Mhm.
understand that like it's moving. So all when you're prompting in the image, you want to prompt for spinning wheels, so the wheels are spinning, so there's a little bit of motion, so that the tool just picks it up and runs with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like little things, but I had to figure that out myself,
No,
because
it's
that's
actually
just
pretty cool. I
simple
would
things.
never think of this.
Yeah,
And it
and it
makes
works.
complete sense. Yeah.
It's just,
And
giving it, don't ask it to do too much. Like you have to still give it a little bit of a head start, which is like, okay, the wheels are spinning. Therefore it's thinking, oh, car driving, car drive this way. So it's
mhm.
like, okay, much easier then.
And I
But
like the way that you think about it and what you just said, because then it forces you not to be lazy and not to rely on it fully, but you also need to think of it. And as we said, it's not a full replacement, but it's ultimately about the person who's using that. Of course, it helps you, it streamlines the process. It's a great benefit, but at the same time, you need to do some effort as well.
yeah, I mean, there's little things, right? Like there was a lot of times people would be like, I can't get a full body shot of someone in Midjourney. It always cuts them off at the hips, right? And it's like, okay, like how many times can you try full body shot, showing the full body in the prompt, like, and it doesn't work? So then it would be like simple hacks, like prompt for the shoes, like because it's going to force it in there.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to force in shoes somewhere. So if you say, full body shot of a woman, wearing a dress and white sneakers, then it has to like conceptualize white sneakers in the image, meaning you'll get the full body shot, right? So it's like little things like that where it's just not, instead of quitting and saying it doesn't do full body shots, it's like try something else one step further, because
Yeah.
oftentimes it'll get there. Because if you
Mhm.
do this stuff enough, you see how good some of the outputs are. Where I still get one from Midjourney like once a month where I'm like, my God, like that is insane that it can
Yeah.
do that, even after generating like hundreds of thousands of images. But there's a way they can do
Mhm.
it. It's just like, can we navigate? So that's really
It's,
where I wish
uh,
people would just kind of push it a little bit further than they do.
mhm. I cannot imagine what such images that blow your mind, what they are like, because I was obviously checking your work or your website and stuff like that. And as someone who doesn't use it regularly or that much, like those private pictures that for you are regular, for me, those are like, oh my God, this is really beautiful. So I cannot
Yeah,
imagine what is beautiful for you that like even higher level.
some of them just like nail an emotion or a composition so well. And I did one the other day, and it was a child soldier, but just like the way that it composed the image and like the emotion, and it was very realistic to me in terms of like that would generate a visceral reaction from me if I was not knowing that was AI. Like
Mhm.
if I just looked at that, I'd be like, that's a sick photo.
Yeah.
And that looks like to me like it would be on the cover of National Geographic. But it was,
Hmm.
I generated 500 of them.
Yeah.
And that was there was one that I was like, damn, like that stands out above the rest. So
Yeah.
it still does it. And it would show you that every once in a while. These tools, they show you this stuff. Like I remember with some of the stuff we're on version 6 now, and version 4, where you get it and be like, what the? And then like version 5, same thing. It's like a little golden nugget that keeps you going,
Mhm.
being like, it can do that. Or, some of the video tools, you get a really crazy output and it looks insane. And you're like, it can do that. So it's capable. You
Yeah.
just have
Yeah.
to like get it there. But
That's
it's always
it.
like it's like curiosity, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
Keeps
And
coming back to that.
I would be curious, when did you actually start, or when did you decide to also build your personal brand around this? Because obviously, what we discussed before back in Barcelona, I can imagine that then you must have felt like someone who knows, so it will be shame not to benefit from it.
Yeah. So LinkedIn was really like the space where I was doing it. Started doing it as more so of like a lead acquisition channel for email marketing, and I was doing stuff on email marketing and whatnot, and it was kind of boring. Like I was bored of doing email marketing content. It's not sexy, like I said. So someone was just like, "This is cool. You should post this on LinkedIn." And I was like, "All right, I'll just do that." And I did it one day, and I was like, "Here's kind of the beginner's guide for, link or Midjourney noobs like me or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, not like being an expert in the tool, just saying, this is what I'm finding on this really cool tool and I'm enjoying it. And, this is where I suck at it. This is where I don't know what to do. And I started posting that. I posted that and it just like went really well. Like a lot of engagement, a lot of interest. Really where it started, if I go back even a little further, was I used to do these carousels, but I'm talking about email marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the whole goal there was not to, not to bore people. So, people scroll by email marketing stuff because it's just, again, it's not as sexy as a lot of things. So I would try to find these stock photos for my carousel covers that were really outrageous. And then at a certain point, I was just like, I can just do this on Midjourney. And I started making the covers, it might be like a flaming neon skull, but I'm talking about like an email marketing automation.
Mm-hmm.
But every comment would be like, where did you get this photo? Like, what stock site? And I was like, I made it. They were like, what are you using? And then I was like, I'll just tell them what I'm doing.
That's
where it started. Yeah. And then it started. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll do this. I'll do this like once a week. So I started doing a Midjourney post like once a week. I figured Saturdays was a great day because people are looking to be entertained. They're not at work. They're not taking calls. They're not in meetings. They don't have deadlines. So I'm like, oh, let me just do this fun thing that I like to do for fun, and I'll put it on the weekends. And it was just like every week, it was just this. It was like hit. And then I started looking around. I started searching, and I'm like, no one else is really doing this. My partner on my podcast, Drew Brucker, was the only other person I saw at one point, like really talking about like how to do this stuff and like really like what we're doing, in-depth prompts, things like that. And it was just like at a certain point, there was like an inflection of like, this is the only stuff that's performing anymore. Like other stuff no one cares about. This is the only stuff. So I think I have to start shifting. So it started to become like 2 posts a week, 3 posts a week, 4 posts a week. And before you know it, that's the entire ethos of my personal brand is Midjourney, right? So it was...
No, it's amazing because you found a obviously niche, and if you said that there wasn't really anyone doing that, I think it sounds like amazing opportunity.
And it was, you think about there's a lot of generalists in the space now where it's just like you talk about tools, you talk about AI updates, like there's nothing wrong with that. I don't find that to be wrong. I think it was just like, because I was so interested in this one tool and I was finding so many uses for it, it was a very easy place for someone to come and, sort of dive in and like really learn something instead of just like piecemeal every once in a while about a tool. It's just like, this is it. This is the direction we're going. That's how, you can basically go back through all of my content and learn the entire tool at an expert level if you wanted to go from like post to post. It's all there. But that was different for me. I'd never really focused on something so narrow on content before, and just like trying to find different ways to utilize it, which made me better at it because it was like, here's how you use it for food photography. Here's how you use it for this. It's kind of like trying to expand your ideas with just one use of a tool, which was super helpful.
And I think it's going to be quite an obvious question, but do you still feel the same excitement talking about this, making posts about it, and diving into this world of Midjourney or AI?
Yeah. Sometimes it does feel like work, to be quite honest, just to get posts out. Like it is sometimes like, I know it's been 2 or 3 days. Like I just got to do something. But, granted, thank God a lot of these tools update a lot, and there's new features and there's ways to tag team the tools now, especially with, Midjourney and the video stuff. Like, a lot of it's image to video. So I can create stuff, on Midjourney still, I can still have my fix and then go put it into video and animate those things together. So yeah, there's days where I'm like, I got to throw something together up here. And there's days when I'm genuinely like trying to figure something out, like right now, probably going to post it later. I've been trying to get a shot of a basketball, like a video generator, to get a guy shooting a basketball and get it to go into the net. That has taken me 6 months with the tools. I finally got it. I finally figured it out. Like this is something that, again, like it seems so simple, but I know it's really hard to get like a basketball to like travel naturally in the air with the arc into the basket, hit the net. That's a lot of like data calculation for these tools. So, like something like that gets me excited. It was so dumb. It's just a shot of a basketball into the net, but like really that's months worth of failure to get there. So there's things like that.
It's super cool. I would never expect that it's Now I don't want to make it sound like that it's easy, but that it takes such a long time, even for a professional, to nail such a shot.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think that's the common misconception with a lot of stuff right now, is that AI is like a one-click solution where you go look at some of the Coca-Cola ads, right, that they just released with all, that were fully AI generated. It was 10,000 images. 10,000 images generated for that 60-second spot. Like, it's still a long process. A lot of regenerations on the video side, editing, doing all the different post-processing. It's still like a creative process. It's not just give me a Coca-Cola ad, enter, there it is. Like, it's a lot of work. So, I think, but these problems, solving them now, like, it works for future applications, right? How can we, that type of shot can now be used. It took forever to sort of figure out am I going to use keyframes? Am I going to use a motion brush? What tool has the capabilities to do it? Is the generation time long enough? Does 5 seconds get it there? Do I need 10 seconds? Like, there's a lot of different micro decisions that go into it. But like, this is stuff I get excited about. Like, I get excited about that.
I'm happy to hear that, because I often also feel like that people think it's just one click and it does everything. So now we can hear it from a professional that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, look, if everyone wants to go give it a try, go give it a try. Tell me if it's one click. Go try Midjourney and type, photo of a man and see what you get. Like, it's going to be very generic, and it's not going to be what you're looking for. It's still like a thought process to be had in all that. I think that gets lost in all this, that there is conscious decisions every step of the way. Like, it's not just mindless typing into a keyboard, enter. Like, there's a lot of different manipulating going on.
Mm-hmm. And Rory, because I think we could be speaking for much longer, but to respect your time, before we finish, do you want to promote yourself or your services, or where people can follow you and find you?
Yeah, man. LinkedIn, I'm there all the time. That's pretty. If you need me, I want to chat, I'm there. I'm on Twitter a lot of the times too now. Roar_fly on Twitter. We also do a podcast, myself and Drew. We're on YouTube called Midjourney Fast Hours. I think that's a really good spot for anyone who really wants to either nerd out a little bit. We go deep dive into a lot of things on like processes and how to do things. We talk about current events. We have guests on. So that's really a place where we get to open up the discussion and talk about a lot of things. So yeah, those are 3 places. If you're looking for me, if you want to talk, LinkedIn's the spot. But that's man. There's hopefully more to come down the line. This has been pretty legit. I've had a fun time talking about this stuff.
You raised some big expectations, so we are excited. And I will add everything to show notes. And then before we finish, is there something that you would like to add or share, or something that I forgot to ask you and you would like to say?
I think just get curious. Like, if you've heard it 30 times throughout this podcast, if I'm just get curious. If you're even like the slightest bit interested in AI, try it out and don't use it for work. Like, just do it for fun. Just try, on the image side, if you want to go create things that you like. Don't do it for work. If you want to go learn how to use ChatGPT, figure out how to build like a walking tour or like a food recommendations and wine pairings for a city that you're going to when you're traveling to. Like, do it for fun, for things like that. You'll learn it better. It'll actually make you feel like these tools are useful. And then, just like that'll build learning. And that's, to me, that's the best way to do it, is to have a little bit of fun with it. Don't take yourself so seriously, and, really just have at it, because the stuff's the worst it's going to be right now, ever. And it's only going to get better, and we'll see where it goes. But
I can only agree, and I love the message. I think that's a perfect note to finish with. Then I want to say a huge thank you. There will be so much more stuff to discuss, so anytime in the future, would be happy to catch up again. I'll make sure to keep following and supporting. So thank you so much, Rory. I wish you all the best, and thank you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on. Let's do this again sometime.
Thanks for listening to Produced By with Tomer. Check out show notes for all the links, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your feedback. Speak soon.